She was mopping the floor when the CEO heard her speak Mandarin. What happened next changed everything. It was a regular Monday morning at Langston Enterprises in downtown Chicago. The lobby buzzed with energy. Heels clicked on tile. Phones rang. People talked fast, their hands wrapped tightly around coffee cups as if the caffeine could save the day. Nobody noticed the janitor. Most people never did. She moved quietly, wiped smudges from glass, emptied trash cans, mopped in slow, practiced strokes like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Her name was Rosa Jennings. Short twists tied back in a ponytail, burgundy uniform, quiet eyes. Rosa had worked the night shift for years. No one ever asked her name. Upstairs, Marcus Bell, the CEO, was walking through the lobby on his way to the elevator. Tall, polished, and always in a rush. He barely noticed people anymore, not out of rudeness, just habit. He'd done this walk every Monday for over a decade. Then he heard something that made him stop. A voice, not loud, not dramatic, just calm, clear, and speaking Mandarin, perfectly. Marcus turned his head. He saw Rosa, yes, the janitor, standing near the touchscreen directory. She was speaking gently to an older Chinese man who looked confused, lost. Her hands moved with ease, pointing to the elevators, offering help like it was second nature. Marcus blinked. Mandarin? He stepped closer. Just as the man thanked her with a relieved smile, Rosa turned to a delivery guy standing nearby. He asked a question in Spanish, and without skipping a beat, she answered fluently. Then came a vendor with a stack of mismarked boxes. Rosa looked at the labels and spoke in French, guiding him to the correct room. 3 languages, in less than 3 minutes. Marcus's mouth went dry, not because of what she said, but because of who she was. The woman who cleaned the offices at night was switching between languages like flipping light switches. He approached slowly. "Excuse me?" he said. Rosa turned, surprised but calm. "Yes, sir?" "That was Mandarin, right?" "Yes, sir," she nodded. "You speak it fluently?" "Yes, and Spanish, French," she paused. "Also Portuguese, German, Arabic, Italian, Swahili, and I read Latin, but that one doesn't come up much." Marcus stared. 9 languages? "Yes, sir." She didn't brag, didn't smile. She just said it like she was telling you the time of day. "What's your name?" he asked. "Rosa Jennings." He hesitated. "Ms. Jennings. Are you free for a few minutes?" She looked unsure, a little hesitant, not afraid, just like she wasn't used to being asked. "Yes, sir," she said quietly. "Come with me," Marcus said. He pressed the elevator button, held the door. She stepped in. Inside the elevator, silence hung between them. Rosa finally said, "I've worked here 13 years. Marcus turned to her. "Really?" She nodded. "First time anyone's asked me upstairs." He gave a quiet smile. "You might be surprised how fast things can change." They reached the executive floor. The air smelled different, like citrus, like leather, like money. People glanced up as Marcus walked through the hall, with Rosa beside him. Nobody said a word, but their faces said everything. Inside his glass-walled office, Marcus gestured toward a chair. "Please, sit." She did, carefully, quietly, her hands folded in her lap. Behind him hung a giant world map, the countries dotted with pins. He looked at her. "I'll be honest, Rosa, I didn't expect this conversation today." She gave a small nod. "But I heard you speak 3 languages like they were nothing, and I need to understand something." He leaned in. "How does someone like you end up cleaning floors?" Rosa looked out the window, then back at him. "You want the truth?" He nodded. "I wouldn't have asked otherwise." She took a breath. Then she began. "I was born in Dayton, Ohio," Rosa began, her voice calm. "Only child. My dad worked at a tire plant. My mom was a home health aide. We didn't have much, but they believed in books. Education was everything to them. Marcus listened, elbows on his desk, eyes steady on hers. I got a scholarship to Ohio State, majored in linguistics. I wanted to work with the UN, maybe travel, help people cross language barriers. She smiled faintly, but it didn't reach her eyes. Halfway through grad school, my mom got sick, real sick. I came home to take care of her, thought it'd be temporary. It wasn't. She passed away 2 years later. Then my dad had a stroke. He didn't last 6 months after that. I never made it back to school. Marcus stayed silent, let her speak. I had a baby. No partner who stayed, no savings. I needed work, fast. Took whatever I could get, grocery stores, call centers, cafeterias, and one day a supervisor here offered me a cleaning job, night shifts, quiet, steady. Let me pick up my daughter from school. Her hands tightened slightly in her lap. That's how I ended up here. Marcus leaned back. But the languages... I didn't stop. I couldn't. She looked up, and this time her eyes glinted with something sharp. Language was how I held on to myself, borrowed textbooks, downloaded audio lessons, read newspapers from other countries online, practiced late at night when my daughter was asleep. She paused. It made me feel like I still mattered. Marcus didn't say anything right away. He just watched her. The silence between them felt heavy, but not uncomfortable. More like respectful. Most people, Rosa added quietly, never ask. They see the uniform, and they assume. That word, assume, sat in the room like a stone dropped in water. Marcus nodded slowly. Look, Rosa, I'm not going to pretend this isn't surprising. It is, but it's also impressive. No, more than that. Extraordinary. She didn't flinch at the praise, just gave a tired, measured smile. Life happened. I did what I had to do. I still do. But you asked, she said softly. So I told you. He exhaled through his nose. You ever think about doing anything else? Sometimes, she said, shrugging. But it's hard to dream big when your rent's due. The way she said it, plain, flat, made something ache behind his ribs. He grabbed a small notepad from his desk, started jotting something down. What are you writing? She asked. He glanced up. Ideas. But one idea had already taken shape in his mind, and it wasn't small. By 4 p.m., Marcus found himself stepping off the executive floor. He walked down 2 levels to the building service area. The walls were beige and scuffed. The air smelled like cleaning supplies and old coffee. He found her in the supply room, restocking cloths. She looked up, surprised. You came down here? He smiled. Couldn't stop thinking about our conversation. She wiped her hands on her uniform. What's on your mind? We've got a group from our Sao Paulo office here early. Our translator canceled last minute. He looked at her. Could you help? She blinked, just once, then nodded. Portuguese, sure, I can do that. 10 minutes later, they were in conference room 2B4. Brazilian executives sat around a long table, looking restless and unsure. Rosa walked in, calm, confident, and then she spoke, fluent Portuguese, smooth as butter. The change in the room was instant. Shoulders relaxed, smiles appeared. A joke was cracked. Rosa laughed, then cracked one right back. Marcus didn't understand the words, but he understood what he was watching. Connection, respect, something no software could ever replicate. After the meeting, one of the Brazilian visitors turned to Marcus. She's better than anyone we've worked with this year, he said. Where did you find her? Marcus looked at Rosa, who was already gathering empty coffee cups. Right here, he replied. Later that evening, Marcus stood by his office window, city lights flickering below like stars caught in concrete. But his mind wasn't on deadlines or data. It was on Rosa Jennings. 9 languages, no formal title, no degree on her wall. Yet she had managed what no one else in the company had, true connection. By the next morning, he'd made up his mind. Rosa had just finished cleaning the east lobby when her supervisor, Brian, tapped her on the shoulder. "Hey, Rosa, Mr. Bell asked to see you again." She looked up, puzzled. "Did I do something wrong?" Brian shrugged. "Didn't say. Just told me to send you up." Rosa cleaned her hands on a towel and took the long walk toward the elevator. This time, something felt different. People were watching her. One of the receptionists even gave her a polite smile, like she knew something Rosa didn't. When Rosa stepped into the executive suite, Marcus was waiting by the window, sipping black coffee. "Come in," he said, still facing the skyline. She stood quietly until he turned around. "I've been thinking," he began, setting his mug down, "about talent and how often we miss it. How many people never get a real chance, not because they aren't capable, but because no one takes a second look?" Rosa said nothing. She'd heard a lot of talk in her life. Promises, praise, compliments that led nowhere. "I want to create a new position," he continued. "Something that didn't exist before, but something this company badly needs." She narrowed her eyes just slightly. "What kind of position?" "Cultural liaison for international affairs. Someone who can translate, not just the words, but the tone, the nuance. Someone who can make people feel understood." She blinked, opened her mouth, then closed it again. "I know you've never worked in an office. I know you don't have a college degree. But Rosa," he leaned in, "you've already done the job. You just didn't have the title." Her voice was low, unsure. "Why me?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "Because I watched you solve 3 problems in 3 languages before 9 a.m. yesterday. And because I'm tired of seeing people like you, smart, capable people, being passed over for no good reason." Rosa shifted in her seat. "People are going to talk. I know. You really think I'm ready for this?" "I think you've been ready for a long time." She glanced down at her shoes, then back up. "I don't even have clothes for this kind of job." "I already had HR arrange a clothing stipend." She gave a dry chuckle. "You really thought of everything, huh?" "I'm trying," he said. There was a pause. She looked down at her hands, then up at him. "What about my shift downstairs? Who's going to replace me?" He smiled. "We'll find someone, but no one can replace you." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Rosa nodded. "All right then, let's see what I can do." They shook hands, firm, steady. But it wasn't just a handshake. It was a moment. By Wednesday, the news had spread. Rosa Jennings, the janitor from the night shift, promoted to a new executive role. Most people didn't know the full story. They just whispered that she spoke 9 languages, that the CEO picked her himself, that maybe she used to work for the government, or had some secret past. Some people were happy, some weren't. In the staff lounge, 2 marketing assistants leaned close over lunch. "I've got a master's degree," one whispered. "Been waiting 2 years for a promotion." And she was mopping the hallway last week. Her friend shrugged. "Maybe she knows something we don't." Others rolled their eyes, called it a stunt, a diversity move, a feel-good headline. But Rosa felt it. The eyes, the whispers, the weight of being watched. Her new office on the 12th floor was small, just a desk, a plant, and a computer. But to her, it looked like another planet. When HR finished onboarding her, Rosa asked one quiet question. "Can I keep my old uniform?" "Not to wear," she said. "Just to remember." That afternoon, she met Victor from International Operations. He walked in tight-lipped, clipboard in hand. "You're the new liaison?" he asked, half smirking. "That's what they tell me," Rosa replied calmly. "You got experience in corporate work?" "Only from the outside looking in." He didn't laugh. I've got reports from Italy, contracts from Dubai, vendor issues from Brazil. Think you can handle all that?" She stood up, firm. "I'll need a few hours to review, but yes." Victor dropped the folder on her desk and walked out. Later that night, Marcus peeked into her office. "How's day one?" Rosa leaned back. "I've had worse." "Victor giving you trouble?" "He doesn't scare me." Marcus smiled. She hesitated, then asked, "Can I ask something?" "Anything." "Why me?" "You could have just given me a bonus, moved on." He leaned against the doorway. "Because I saw myself in you." She raised an eyebrow. "You were a janitor?" "No," he said. "But I was overlooked. A lot. Grew up in a town no one cared about. My dad fixed cars. I worked 3 jobs to get here." She nodded slowly. "Now you're the one deciding who gets in." He nodded back. "Exactly." The next morning, Rosa arrived early, earlier than anyone else on her floor. She sat at her desk, reviewing documents in 3 different languages, sipping plain coffee from a paper cup. She didn't need a nameplate to feel the weight of the job. The silence in the hallways told her everything. Some people still didn't know what to make of her. Others had already made up their minds. That same morning, an email hit every inbox in the company. Short, clear. Sent by Marcus Bell himself. It read, "Please welcome Rosa Jennings as our new cultural liaison for international affairs. Rosa brings fluency in 9 languages, a deep understanding of global cultures, and a perspective we've been missing for far too long. This is not a temporary title. This is a recognition of talent that's always been here. We're proud to have her leading this work." It didn't say she was once a janitor. It didn't need to. The message was clear. She earned this. Still, the whispers didn't stop. Some people congratulated her with warm smiles. Others avoided eye contact altogether. In the elevator, a few executives kept their distance, arms crossed, silent. But Rosa had been overlooked long enough to know how to carry herself now. She kept her shoulders square, her eyes forward, and her answers sharp. That afternoon, she was asked to join a meeting with a team from Morocco. The company's North African expansion had been delayed for months. Mistranslations, missed cues, broken trust. Rosa walked into the room wearing a soft beige blazer and calm resolve. She sat at the table, looked each visitor in the eye, and introduced herself in fluent Moroccan Arabic. The effect was instant. Chairs shifted, eyes lit up, people leaned in. Respect filled the room like sunlight. After the meeting, one of the Moroccan partners pulled her aside. He touched his chest, a traditional sign of deep gratitude. "No one's ever done that for us," he said in Arabic. "Not in our language, not like that." Rosa placed a hand over her heart and smiled. "You matter," she said simply. That evening, something unexpected happened. Marcus renamed the company's main training room, where new hires met, where mid-level leaders gave presentations. No party, no announcement, just a new plaque, the Atwater Room. A quiet change, but a powerful one. Later that afternoon, Rosa found an envelope on her desk. No return address, just her name, handwritten. Inside, a note. "I used to think I'd be invisible forever, but today I stood a little taller because of you. Thank you, no signature, just proof." People were watching, people who needed to see what was possible, but not everyone felt inspired. That Thursday, Rosa got a message asking her to report to the 17th floor. Not from Marcus, from someone higher, Eleanor Craig, senior board member. She'd been with the company longer than most of the buildings downtown had been standing. Known for sharp suits and a sharper tongue. Rosa entered the small conference room. Eleanor sat at the end of the table, flipping through papers with fingers that never fumbled. "Have a seat," she said without looking up. Rosa sat. Eleanor tapped her pen. "No college degree. No certifications. No prior management roles. You were a janitor here 3 weeks ago. Rosa nodded. That's correct. Eleanor looked up at her, expression unreadable. Help me understand how someone like you ends up handling international affairs at a Fortune 500 company. Rosa didn't blink. Because I speak the languages. I understand the cultures. I've already fixed 2 vendor contracts and helped close a deal that was stuck in Morocco for 3 months. I also helped secure a verbal agreement from our Brazilian partners that legal is finalizing next week. Eleanor blinked. Just once. You think this company should be run on charm? No, ma'am, Rosa said evenly. I think it should be run on results. Eleanor folded the folder shut. You're a gamble. I've been a gamble my whole life, Rosa replied quietly. Doesn't mean I can't win. She left the meeting without fanfare, without fear. Instead of going back to her office, Rosa walked outside, sat on a bench across the street, looked up at the building where she'd once mopped floors, where she'd walked past people who never saw her. Now they all did. Not all of them liked it. She pulled out her phone, called her daughter. Hey, Mama, her daughter answered. Everything okay? Rosa smiled faintly. Yeah, just needed to hear your voice. They talked for a few minutes. Groceries, a neighbor's dog, a new TV show, just enough to bring Rosa back to center. When they hung up, she stood, walked across the street, rode the elevator back to her office, and kept going. By Friday morning, something had shifted. The tension was still there, sure. But so was something else. A quiet current of respect. Word of the meeting with Eleanor Craig had somehow spread. People expected Rosa to disappear, to shrink back into the background. But she didn't. She showed up early. She ran a team briefing before most executives had even poured their coffee. She took a call with the German office and didn't need a translator. She was calm, sharp, steady, and unbothered. Later that day, someone scribbled 3 words on the whiteboard outside her office. We see you. No name, no explanation, just a message. And Rosa felt it. Deep down, something was changing, not just for her, but in the building itself. People started coming to her, not just for translations, but for advice, guidance, confidence. Interns began stopping by with nervous questions. Project leads asked her to sit in during vendor calls. Even directors started looping her in, quietly at first, then openly. Rosa didn't gloat. She didn't remind anyone where she came from. She just listened and helped. One afternoon, a shy Vietnamese intern named Bao walked into her office holding a notebook. He hesitated, then asked softly, How did you learn all those languages? She smiled gently. 1 word at a time, same way you will. That was Rosa's gift. She didn't just open doors. She left them open behind her. Later that week, Marcus stopped by her office with 2 cups of coffee. They sat in the break room, away from the noise. I've been hearing good things, he said. Rosa raised an eyebrow. Been trying to ignore the bad ones. You're making waves, he said with a smile. She took a sip. That a good thing? He nodded. Around here it means you're doing something right. They sat in silence for a moment, both watching the steam rise from their cups. Then Marcus said quietly, I want to start something, a training program for internal talent. Rosa looked at him. There's probably more people like you in this building, he continued. We just haven't seen them yet. She nodded slowly. There are. He leaned in. Want to help me build it? Her eyes lit up. I've already started, in my head. By month's end, the pilot program launched. They called it Voice Inside. It gave workers from every department, especially night staff and overlooked roles, access to training, mentorship, and visibility. Language classes, leadership workshops, cross-department collaborations. It wasn't flashy, but it was real, and it started with Rosa. Not long after, she was invited to speak at a logistics summit in Cincinnati, a big one, executives, investors, analysts. She stood at the podium in a charcoal blazer, holding a small set of notes, and the room went still. "I was never just a janitor," she said into the mic. "I was fluent, I was capable, I was ready, but nobody ever looked long enough to see it." She paused, then added, "So the next time you walk past someone without a title, ask yourself, what are you really missing?" Silence. Then the room stood, full applause. On her way out, a young man stopped her, his eyes red, voice shaking. "My mom's a housekeeper," he said. "She speaks 5 languages. I used to be embarrassed to say that." Rosa touched his arm gently. "Don't ever be ashamed of where you come from. The only thing to be ashamed of is staying blind to brilliance." She walked out taller than she ever had. Not because of applause, not because of the title, but because she'd brought her whole self, every part of her story, into a space that once refused to see her. And she didn't shrink. She expanded. Rosa never tried to fit the role. She redefined it. And in doing so, reminded everyone of something simple and powerful. Talent doesn't wear labels. Intelligence doesn't ask for permission. And sometimes, the brightest mind in the building is holding a mop, just waiting for someone to notice.